Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm your host, Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton. I'm joined by Kevin Hirsch, who is the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, as well as Ryan Young, the Agri-News Director at CKRM in Regina. Of course, this week was a big week in the fact that the canola seed tariff was introduced on Thursday by China, 75.8%. Some people are calling it a temporary thing, but it sounds like it could be a little more than temporary. What's your view on it, Kevin?
I think that it indeed, unless there's some policy change by Canada, will become permanent, whether it's at that exact percentage or not. But I don't think it was introduced preliminary basis just to cancel or get rid of it. I think it's a sign that this is indeed going to become permanent unless there's some change in negotiation between Canada and China between now and when it becomes permanent.
Ryan, of course, you and I had the chance to speak to a number of people regarding reaction. I spoke with Bill Prabilski, the president of APAS. You had a few guests as well on your show regarding that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I just before this roundtable, I got off the phone with Provincial Agriculture Minister Daryl Harrison to get his thoughts on the whole ordeal. And not surprisingly, he's disappointed by the decision, and he's calling on Federal Ag Minister Heath MacDonald as well as the Prime Minister to kind of take the lead on this issue. And those have been calls we've been hearing for several months now, even going back to March when the initial tariffs were put in place. Premier Mo has had meetings with Chinese representatives this week, as well as a meeting with the Prime Minister as well, and saw an X from the Prime Minister that they agreed, they being Premier Mo and himself, agreed to help out canola producers with some measures and other ideas and how they can prop them up. But when I asked Minister Harrison about that, he said they're very preliminary at this point. So we could expect maybe some financial compensation, but that's just purely speculative at this point. So that's kind of the latest on that front from the provincial agriculture minister's perspective. And we've heard from other farm groups as well that it kind of follows a pattern from the federal government of, farmers being collateral damage in these trade disputes, and those words coming from the Wheat Growers Association. So pretty strong words there. And of course, Doug, you talked to Bill Prabilski of APAS, and he kind of pointed out that from a financial perspective, if you have any contracts, forward contracts, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, he was suggesting that if it's a dollar a bushel less right now, it's going to cost his farm, for instance, about $200,000 this year if this remains in place. And he did have some forward contracts already locked in, but anything that wasn't already sold, he was pretty concerned about that. So yeah, he was very disappointed, but he said he wasn't surprised either. He expected this to be coming down the pipe. And of course, Kevin, you had a chance to talk to Chuck Penner of Left Field Commodity Research about it as well.
And it's interesting because the calls now will be to compensate the canola industry and canola producers, but it becomes very difficult to calculate. And Chuck Penner pointed that out. In fact, Left Field Commodity Research has done some work on compensation for private interests. Now, we don't know whether that's government or associations or who it is, but there is work ongoing as to how do you quantify the loss. When the announcement initially came out, futures were limit down, $45 down. I think they finished the day $30 down, then bounced around and climbed back a little bit before the end of the week. But this is a long-term thing. How do you accurately calculate the loss on this? And then how do you go about paying that compensation out if indeed the government agrees that compensation is something that it is willing to do? But I think that's where the discussion is likely to go in the weeks to come.
Something else that came up this week was federal conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in the Saskatoon area on Thursday, and he was expressing concerns about EVs and where that's going, and that eventually farmers may be forced to purchase electric vehicles, and what issues that causes. Is that something you would be concerned about as well, Kevin?
I think the EV mandate is just ludicrous. Let people buy the vehicles they want and don't put quotas on and think you're going to phase out internal combustion engines. But I didn't hear the full interview with Pierre Poilievre. Did he say that we should cancel the 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles? Because that would go a long way to perhaps reducing or eliminating the tariff on canola. Did the Conservatives actually go that far? Have you heard them actually call for that?
I didn't hear that in the interview that I heard. Ryan, did you hear that?
Not to my knowledge, no, but he kind of criticized the federal government over priorities, similar comments to what the wheat growers were saying, kind of sacrificing farmers for this EV market.
All right. And then, of course, we also heard on Wednesday was the official grand opening of a flax processing plant in Delisle. It's run by Grain Millers Canada. Kevin, that's not too far from your home base of Saskatoon.
No, and it's great to see more of flax processing and buyers that are specializing in flax and grain millers with their new facility in Delisle. Schooler has got a facility. I think that's in Regina. O&T Farms uses flax in much of their ration formulation for the products it sells, and they're always advertising that they're buying flax. So it's good to see this local domestic demand for flax, because flax is a crop that really has declined in acreage and in importance. Another thing, if they can get flax fiber being utilized and producers being compensated for providing flax off their field and eliminating or reducing the pain of the residue issue, the flax straw issue that plagues producers, that'll go a long way to increasing flax acreage as well. So good to see some positive developments there. Flax acreage is really a small percentage of it, what it was, say, 10 years ago.
And of course, Ryan, the Grain Growers of Canada held some tours in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta this week, including some stops in Saskatchewan, not far from here, and then, of course, more towards central Saskatchewan. I guess the big thing on that was that it was kind of not a whole lot of lead time on it. We kind of found out about it last minute.
Yeah, it was basically the day before the tour started, I believe, if my memory serves me well. We got the notice on their summer tour, but basically the purpose of it was just to get a general sense from farmers that they visited about what federal ag policies kind of keep them up at night the most. One of the things, for example, that he brought up was, ironically, the tariffs that China put on Canadian canola products. So that's one thing, as well as a whole host of other things that the Grain Growers of Canada was kind of interested in. Another interesting aspect of it too was they brought along local members of parliament on these tours. So in Manitoba, you had the Manitoba MPs; in Saskatchewan, same thing; Alberta, same thing. So to really get a sense of how decisions in Ottawa are affecting farmers from a grassroots level. And even Kyle Larkin, the executive director, admitted that, even though that these MPs represent rural ridings, they usually don't get out to farms as often as they should. So this provides a really good opportunity to kind of make that connection. So they were supposed to wrap up their tour yesterday, kind of around Edmonton. So I'll be following up with him next week on how the tour went.
Kevin, I'd never heard of these Grain Growers of Canada tours before. Have you heard that this thing has happened before, and what's your reaction to them?
Well, I think a lot of producers will say, "Who the heck is Grain Growers of Canada?" But typically, they're actually an organization of organizations, and I can't list off the top of my head, but Sask Wheat, for instance, Alberta Grains, probably the Western Canadian Wheat Growers Association, that's all membership in Grain Growers of Canada. But to announce these tours, the day before they're happening, it's really not an open meeting that farmers can go to. It sounded more like visiting select producers and getting their opinions, and that can be valuable as well. But if they really wanted to hear from producers, I'm surprised they didn't have some town hall meetings advertised in advance and let people show up and hear what everybody had to say at that time. So I'm a little surprised by the approach and how this was handled.
Yeah, I did kind of ask Kyle about that, if it was just going to be farms or kind of a town hall style meeting across the prairies. And he said they're just kind of focused on select farms for now. And this is kind of a recent thing. This was only the second annual summer tour. So kind of a recent idea.
We also had the Manitoba and Saskatchewan crop reports come out this week, and most areas, it sounds like both provinces have seen some harvest activity already, but of course, those were stopped or at least held up due to some rains. We had a report on the Manitoba side. The community of Ethelbert, which is just north of Dauphin, had 5 7/10 of an inch of rain over the past week. So obviously, things came to a halt there. And I think there were some pretty big numbers on the Saskatchewan side as well, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a lot of widespread rain. You look at the latest weekly rainfall map, for example, and it's really nice to see areas around the province get a decent amount of moisture, anywheres from 20 millimeters up to over 50 millimeters, especially in areas of the north that's been really dry for most of the season and kind of surprising in a way, compared to the previous week where the Southwest got an abundance of rain, and they still got some rain according to the rainfall map, so that's good. Just some pockets here and there that's been kind of dry for the most part. And when you look at harvest progress, it's around 2% at this point, behind the 5 and 10 year averages, obviously. But, kind of at this point in mid August, it's traditionally a little early for harvest unless you're in the Southwest where Kevin farms. So, Kevin, have you fired up the combine just yet, or is it another week?
No, it's still a little bit of a wait for us. Things are still a little bit of green, a tremendous amount of regrowth. And after praying for rain for so long, producers in southwest Saskatchewan and actually much of southern Saskatchewan would actually hope that the rains now abate and hold off for harvest. We're seeing tremendous problems with quality, especially in large green lentils that have been ripe and sitting in rain and losing quality. Seeing tremendous growth of weeds. It's the southern Saskatchewan Christmas tree, the kochia, that's taken over in some fields that are just a tremendous mess, wondering how harvest is going to be accomplished there. So it's the time of year where, even though rain has been short and it's lovely to see rain and has many benefits for harvest progress, really, and harvest quality, now is the time for the tap to shut off for a time.
All right. And then, of course, just last weekend was the Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan held their open farm days. And I had a chance to speak with Bill Prabilski, the president of APAS. He opened up his farm on Sunday to the general public. It's a good idea, isn't it, Kevin, to get people to come out, especially a lot of people who have maybe never even been on a farm or haven't been on a farm since they were a kid or something like that.
I think it's marvelous, and heard your discussion with Bill, and I think they said they had about 100 visitors. That's excellent. People that are interested can come out and see and ask questions. Saskatchewan's actually a little bit behind on this. Other provinces that are more urban based have had open farm days for quite a few years, but it's great to see the idea and the initiative also take off in Saskatchewan, because we have an increasingly urban oriented population. We have a lot of people that have moved here from other countries, and we have people that are many generations removed from the farm. So I think it's an excellent idea to have open farm days in Saskatchewan as well. Great initiative.
All right. Well, on that note, that'll wrap up this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young and the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com Kevin Hirsch, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next time.